Welcome back to the Finney Show, where we help you make sense of real estate. I'm your host, Andrew Finney with King Realty Group here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for joining in today, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful time with you. As we begin, there's a couple of quick ground rules. Number one, you are in a safe place, so please be respectful and polite. And number two, there is no such thing as a stupid question. So if it's on your mind, please ask away. As we move forward through the live stream today, what we'll do is we'll go over a book of the week. Then we'll move along and answer any questions that are coming in today during the live stream. And we'll get through as many of the comments that came in off the channel over the past week. Again, looking forward to a wonderful time with you. If you have anything, please let me know. We're changing it up a little bit this time, shooting off of the webcam and the microphone. Please let me know how it works out on your side, and let me know what you're thinking, especially if you've been here before. Brandon Mendoza, thank you for being here. Glad that you're joining in today. So the book of the week for this week is The Outward Mindset. The Outward Mindset is a book by the Arbinger Institute that's talking about seeing beyond ourselves. And why I wanted to share this with you is all too often it's really, really easy for us to get involved with just ourselves and have kind of a narrow mind that's very, very specific to us. It is our human nature, and it is only natural. What this book challenges you to do is to look beyond yourself. So when there's other issues in your life or there's other issues at work, to consider someone else's perception and someone else's point of view. Doing so holistically can make things a lot better for you and for those around you. By removing ourselves from the situation and assessing it objectively, we can oftentimes put into context by looking at the total situation to improve those lives around ours and ours ourselves. So it's a book that I really wanted to share with you, and I hope that you find it as beneficial to you as I have found it to me. Considering this point of view whenever I'm working with families here in Las Vegas, Nevada is very, very powerful. You know, one thing that I could say to somebody could be construed not the way that I intended it. And something that somebody says to me could be construed by me or perceived by me to be something different than the way it was intended. So taking ourselves out of the situation, and like I always like to say, hashtag JTAB, just take a breath to reassess, makes life a little bit easier, and it helps us keep on the up and up with respectful relations moving forward. So again, that book is The Outward Mindset, Seeing Beyond Ourselves by the Arbinger Institute. It is in the show more description below if you'd like to check it out. I hope that you enjoy the book. Reem Trans, thank you so much for being here, and really appreciate your support. Reem, thank you for letting me know that you appreciate the great info. It's always wonderful to hear that. Glad that you're liking the content. If you have any ideas, Reem, just let me know. I always love to get feedback from you and see what else you would like me to produce. Mommy's Time. Hello, Andrew. Mommy's Time. Thank you for being here. It's always great to hear from you. Cedric Lard, always love a good book suggestion. Cedric, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoy that book. I really, really loved it. I listened to it like 3 or 4 times, so I hope that you guys enjoy it too. Brian Luong says, hi, Andrew. Long time no talk. It's raining here versus snowing. This last weekend, we received about 8 inches of snow, and now we're going to get a second rain. Major flooding concern. Oh my goodness, Brian! I'm glad that you're safe. And you know, being in Las Vegas, Nevada, when you start talking about snow and rain, it's a little bit of a foreign concept to us. So I definitely appreciate you letting us know what's going on around the country this time of the year. Right now in Las Vegas, it's just really, really, really windy today. All the same, it's kind of interesting, Brian. We did have snow, all of like maybe a 1/4 inch of it about 3 weeks ago, and that was pretty fascinating to us Las Vegans. I think there was a lot of parents that were taking their kids out of school for a snow day because it was such a rare thing. They wanted to spend it and go up to Mount Charleston where there is snow and have a good time. All the same, Brian, thank you for joining in. Thank you for giving us more information about your situation. It is great to hear from you, my friend. Tishar says, good morning, all. Tish, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate that. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the question of the week. The question of the week came in from Avery. She was watching a video. It was Avery Pitts, and she said, I just bought a brand new home, and an issue with the insulation coming through the vents is causing health concerns for me. What should I do? And I really want to highlight on this because, I mean, a new home costs a lot of money. We all know that, right? So what happens is whenever you have a brand new home construction, if you have insulation coming through the vents or there's any other issues, what you want to do, number one, is document it. A lot of new home construction builders will offer a builder warranty. And initially in that first 1 year period after you close. It's like a bumper-to-bumper warranty, if you will. So if you make a request and have them check it out, they're going to go in and fix it. So that's what's really important for you to do, Avery, and anyone else that's out there that knows of anyone else that has a new construction home. If they're having issues, contact the builder immediately, letting them know what's going on. Please take pictures of it. Please document it. And as you're making the service request and as people are coming into your new home, identifying what's going on, make note of who was there, what was said, and start preparing a chronological record should it be needed in the future for any kind of possible litigation or any possible issues. God forbid that happen, but it's always best to have that information available than it is not. And it's easier to capture notes when things are fresh on your mind. But the first step is to contact the builder to get that fixed, because the builder will absolutely want to get that fixed for you, Avery. I appreciate you sharing with us, and please let me know how that turns out for you, and check back in with us. And I hope that everything gets fixed soon so that you don't have any health issues. Okay, so let's move along to some of the comments that came in over the past week. I'm pulling it up on my other screen over here, so bear with me. All right. Sheila was watching negotiating repairs after a home inspection and says, what would you do if before the closing and after the inspection, you discovered that the seller lied about the cost of home improvements to the home? He has dramatically inflated the cost of things such as hardwood floor installation, painting, and other items. Would you walk away? The seller is a flipper. I know he has to make some profit, but not 100% or 150%. Thanks. So Sheila, I really appreciate that. And here's the thing. When you're talking about somebody overestimating the cost of the home, if it checks out on the appraisal and you were happy to pay the price, you guys had an agreed upon contract, and it made sense to you at the time, then you really got to go back to the reasons why you're buying a house and re-examine what's going on. Sure, they could have inflated it. If that's the case, it's very, very unfortunate. At the same time, it's not going to fool an appraiser. An appraiser is going to know what the product costs. They're also going to know what it costs to install it. And the appraiser is normally not going to give any concern or any weight to how much the labor costs, in as much as they will weight how much it costs for the product itself. So if that's your situation, please re-examine the reasons why you wanted to buy that house. Please re-examine the fact of what happened with your home inspection, and if the repairs that you requested were made, especially if they were material things that most oftentimes need to be fixed if it wasn't addressed previously when they flipped the property or getting ready to flip the property, okay? And then the next thing that you want to do is, if the appraisal checks out, then that means the appraiser, regardless of what the seller is saying the product cost, the appraiser has assigned a value in their professional opinion of the value of that property. So please, before you consider walking away from it, you made an offer for a reason. Re-examine the reasons why, and please don't let the bad blood get to you. Focus on what's most important to you. If you feel that it's the right thing for you to walk away, then do what you need to do. At the same time, be realistic about the reasons why you wanted to buy it to begin with, and don't let someone else's issues cause you an issue, okay? Let's see. Senior Ortiz, 78, had watched what home inspectors look for in a home inspection. And Senior Ortiz says, if I want to buy a house that has about 80 feet of block retaining wall that is 50 feet away from the side of the house, will the inspector inspect that retaining wall? Now, that's a really good question. And I do get asked this quite a bit lately in the comments about, will an inspector inspect a wall? Well, one of the things and the easiest way to know whether an inspector is going to inspect a wall or not is how? Simply asking the question. So the best way for you to get an answer to that question, Senior Ortiz, is to contact the inspector of your choice and ask them if they will be inspecting that wall for you, or if it's an additional service that they provide, okay? You want to make sure that you ask those questions and make sure that you're letting your real estate agent know that you want to have it inspected if that's the case. And if you need to contact a structural inspector to come in because you did mention it was a retaining wall, then maybe that's a more appropriate inspection for a structural inspector. All the same, ask the question. That's the best way to get knowledge, is to simply ask. And that's why we do the live streams all the time, is so that it gives you the opportunity to ask right now and get as many of your questions answered as possible. Great question, Senor Ortiz. Really appreciate you watching the video and bringing it up. Adam Vaughn, thank you for being here. Adam says, thank you, Andrew. We closed on Friday, replaced the air filter for the HVAC and locks on day one. As per your input, but they had to do the repairs after closing, and they were done satisfactorily to me. Thank you so much for helping me through the process. Your videos help me not stress out so much. Adam, I'm super excited for you. Congratulations on your new home, and I'm glad that you immediately went to work on the stuff that you should do as a new homeowner, specifically changing out the locks. I mean, that's freaking awesome. I mean, it's one of those things most of us don't really think about, but it is critically important to get done. So I'm glad to hear that you did that and that you changed out the HVAC air filters. Really simple to do, but it'll make a big difference for your HVAC unit to make sure that you're doing that. Make sure that when you do that too, Adam, whenever you're talking about your air filters, make sure that you know whether you're supposed to do them once a month or once every 3 months. They make different kinds. Obviously, the ones that last a little bit longer generally cost a little bit more money too, but make sure that you're putting in the right kind of air filters and changing them out frequently, and just work it into your schedule and in your routine. Just put it on your Google Calendar or whatever to remind you about it. It's the easiest way to do it. The air filters I have in my house are every 3-month replacement, so I normally just do them at the beginning of every quarter. It's the easiest way for me to remember. Anyways, Adam, congratulations on your new home. Certainly hoping that you and your family enjoy making it your own and filling those walls full of love and fun in the future. Okay. Tish R was watching your home during a divorce. What happens to it, right? So Tish says, ooh-wee, glad I bought it solo. Yeah, it can get kind of dirty, and that's why I wanted to make that video. I'd had a couple of my past clients, I've been doing this now for about 5.5 years, coming up on 6 years here in July. So the likelihood of some of those families that I've represented that might be getting a divorce is very real. And some of them have contacted me, asked me what happens in the case of a divorce when we own a home together. So that's why I made that video, because I thought if it's happening here locally with the people that I've worked with, then it's probably happening all across the nation, and people might want to know the questions they should be asking a divorce attorney or family attorney, and also the questions they should consider amongst themselves to try to work through a divorce proceeding together. Mommy Z Time. Andrew, can you explain to me how lenders determine what's an acceptable credit score for people with lower credit score? Some lenders will only accept 630 plus, while some are saying that 580 is okay. So that's a really good question, Mommy Z Time. And I always say that. I don't know why I do that, by the way. Mommy's Time, not Mommy Z Time, but Mommy's Time. Hey, appreciate the question, and it's a great one. So a lot of lenders can lend down to a 580. That's just the long story short of it. Now, when you're talking about 630 plus, it's now going to go towards a specific loan program or a specific finance type. When we're considering the world of home loans in the lending world, there are 4 main types of loans. You have a conventional loan, which everybody seems to know about. Then you have an FHA loan, you have a VA loan, and you have a USDA loan that is available in the rural areas of the United States. So when we're talking about those 4 broad categories, you also then have all these little branches. If you envision like a tree, and then it just starts sprouting everywhere with all these different loan programs available, depending on which loan program underneath which loan type may have a different credit score requirement. There are down payment assistance programs here that the loan officers I work with, like Bill Marin over at Guild Mortgage, for instance, they have loan programs that will pay the down payment for a buyer, which is awesome, right? But the trade-off is they have to have a credit score of 640. In some cases, it might be as high as a 660, depending on which program it is. So it's important to take note of which program that lender is referring to, and if it's the right program for you. That's where it's helpful to be working with a local loan officer. I was asked recently where someone said, Andrew, why do you say local loan officers so much compared to maybe just a bank, like a big bank like Chase or something like that? First thing is in my experience of working with big banks is that it's a whole different caliber of lender. There is something, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you may agree or disagree, but in my humble opinion, there is something to be said for commission-based people, whether they be lenders, real estate agents, or any other type of professional out there. To become successful and to maintain yourself in this business and to rise to the top takes what? A lot of damn perseverance, if we're being honest, a lot of hours, a lot of training, a lot of education, and learning how to be the absolute best. We couldn't be the best if we were pissing people off, frankly, all the time. We have to know how to sort out their options and lay them out. Whereas the big banks, a lot of those people are paid hourly, so it's a little bit different. They have a quota on their head where they have to issue X number of pre-qualifications, not even a pre-approval, just a pre-qualification. Take someone's pulse. Are you breathing? You say that you earn $100,000 a year? Cool. We'll give you a pre-qualification pending income, asset, credit, and employment verification later on. We'll do that. But we'll go ahead and give this to you now. Quota made, they got their paycheck, they're happy. Whereas with a local loan officer, they're going to take the time to review, and they're going to request up front your W-2s, your 2 months of your pay stub, or excuse me, 2 months of your bank statements, 1 month of your pay stubs. They're going to go ahead and ask about your employment information, get your asset accounts, and start verifying everything so that they can get an idea. Okay, Mommy's Time, you might be qualified for these 4 or 5 different loan programs. Okay, here are the pros and cons of each. And then they put that information out to you so that you can make a well-informed decision about your financing options that are best for you. That's why I'm so big on the local loan officer, because you can go meet them face to face, have a real conversation with them, not dial 1-800 your number, and get real service from somebody that can realistically assist you in making sense of your options. This is the biggest purchase in many of our lives, so shouldn't we get it right? In my opinion, that answer is yes, and that's why I make these videos to help people make sense of real estate. I really appreciate you bringing that up, Mommy Z Time. Ask the lender what program that pertains to whenever you're looking at your options and exploring your financing options. Great question. Thank you. Tishar says, nothing against buying with your love, but I've heard awful stories. Tish, hey, you got a point. You definitely have a point there. Daniel Abernathy, thank you for joining in today. Daniel says, can you explain FHA-approved communities? When I purchased a condo 5 years ago, FHA loans were approved. Now I'm selling and learned the approval has expired. So that's a really interesting point, Daniel, and I'm glad that you bring it up. I did make a very specific video. You might want to go back and check it out because I have the links available in the show more description of that video about buying a condo with an FHA loan. And what happens is they have to keep applying for FHA approval. If they're not applying for FHA approval and it expires, then that becomes problematic, because one of the things a lender's going to do with a condominium, especially if they have the buyer, obviously that's FHA or even VA in that case, is they're going to look and make sure that they are approved to lend to that specific condominium community. There's a host of different reasons and a host of different variables that go into an approval for a condominium to be able to accept that kind of finance type. And I know it can get very frustrating, especially now that you're looking at selling it and you bought it 5 years ago with an FHA loan. What you probably want to do is go back to that video that I just referred to, because in the show more description are the links, and you can get up with your HOA and petition them and ask them to apply for their approval process again, so that you could turn around. And if you're not on the market currently, then you can offer FHA financing. If not, then it's going to be strictly cash or conventional. Now, I can share with you, like here in Las Vegas, Nevada, is really interesting. I mean, condominiums will seem like a great deal sometimes, and and for some people, they are great. It is a lifestyle that they wish to enjoy, and it provides them with what they want in a new community. At the same time, about probably 80% or so of the condominiums in Las Vegas are not FHA or VA approved, which becomes problematic to a lot of first-time home buyers. And I think that with the prices of real estate, we will see more and more first-time home buyers looking for condominiums or townhomes to purchase, since they're normally less expensive than a single-family residence. That being said, it is extremely important to note that one of the biggest trade-offs with a lot of condominium communities is the sheer fact that you have high HOA fees. Again, I'm going to refer back to the Las Vegas marketplace here, since it's my tromping ground and it's what I know best, right? A lot of these condominiums have a minimum HOA fee of $150 a month. So when you're thinking about buying a $200,000 condominium, you also have to weigh that you're going to have a $150 a month HOA payment that's it might offset the total amount of approval. So if you were approved for $200 and maybe that was considering a $50 a month HOA, and now you're talking about realistically $150 a month, it might change your pre-approval amount to maybe $180,000 or $185,000. So it's important to be clear about how that's going to affect your purchasing power moving forward. There are pros and cons to single-family homes. There are pros and cons of condos. There are pros and cons of townhomes. It's about educating yourself and making a well-informed decision. And then to Daniel's point, I think it's really, really important for him to go back and check out that video, grab those links out of the show more description, call the HOA company and see, why did they let it lapse? Why did it expire? One of the reasons that sometimes happens is if the financials of the HOA are not strong, if there's something wrong with their financial stability for the HOA. So it's one of those things, Daniel, that you're going to want to go back and check out. Please let us know how that turns out for you, by the way, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Darren Carter, there you are, Darren. Thank you. With a 580 score, you have zero room for error in your score going forward. Once you're approved, ask my wife. She learned this firsthand. Darren, thank you. I really appreciate your openness, Darren. Number one, you're always here and you're joining in all the time. I really do appreciate that. Thank you for that. But I also appreciate your openness and your willingness to share your real life experiences of when you guys just closed on your home last winter. So when we're talking about that, that is extremely important to note. And one of the things that I would say right there when I'm looking at that sentence, you have zero room for error, is absolutely correct. It does get a little bit more tricky with the 580 or when you're going down to a 580 for the pre-approval process. So you're absolutely right. There is zero room for error. So I'm glad that you brought that up and highlighted that. And yes, as we know in your situation that you shared with us previously in the live stream, that your wife ended up having to be taken off of the loan because of the issue. And fortunately, you were still able to get approved for the amount off of just your situation, which is freaking rock star and awesome. And I'm glad that it worked out for you guys. And that, again, thank you so much for joining in, Darren. And thank you so much for being open-minded and sharing with us freely the things that happen in your contract that help other people learn from. Brandon Mendoza says, very true. Thank you, Brandon. Mommy's Time, you are so right. Thank you for the info. Do you recommend anyone in Minnesota? Realtor and lender wise. So Mommy's Time, the best way that I can make recommendations or referrals to other states is to reach out to my top agent network. What I normally ask people to do, and if you want assistance in doing it, I can do it as well, is to simply go on the show more description of the video and send me a direct email with your contact information. In the subject line, just put your screen name and YouTube so I know, and just let me know you're looking for a lender. What I'll do is I'll send you an email asking you about particulars of what you're looking for in your new place, and then I'll reach out to my top agent network with that information that you provide and see who's available in the area that's going to work in with those type of homes and that type of price point and such that can get you the best information possible locally. Most trusted real estate advisors, especially a top trusted real estate advisor, will already have associations with local loan officers and all the key players that you'll need through the closing process. So it's not that you have to use whoever they suggest or whoever they put you in touch with. It's just something that they could point you in the right direction. And of course, once you have that conversation with them, you'll know if they're right for you. And as I always suggest, you want to Google the agent and the local loan officer and make sure that you're checking out their past client testimonials and their ratings and reviews to make sure that they're the right one for you. Jacob Shaw says, Andrew, I'm in escrow. FHA, the inspector comes today. Yay, Jacob. Hey, super excited for you, bud. Glad to hear that you're in contract and the inspector's coming today. I hope everything turns out well for you guys. Now, it sounds like that video about negotiating repairs after a home inspection report might be pretty good for you right about now to help you and your trusted real estate advisor to negotiate any repairs that might be needed after the home inspection. I'm super excited for you, Jacob. Please check in with us again. Let us know how the process is going for you and if you have any questions or suggestions for other videos as you move forward through the process. Thank you so much for being here today. It's great to hear from you. Elijah Hunter 77 says, hello. Oh, I scrolled up too fast. Sorry, Elijah. Elijah Hunter 77 says, hello, Andrew. Thank you for your channel. I'm buying a new one-floor home, $205,000 from D.R. Horton. What to look out for in homes quality? What D.R. Horton is famous for in poor quality houses? Thanks. Hey, so you know that's a really good point, and I've shared with you in the videos that I've made about new construction. Okay, D.R. Horton's a national builder. They're really good at what they do. I've worked with D.R. Horton to sell family homes that have purchased with DR brand new construction. It worked out great. Now, what I would like you to be cognizant of and be realistic about is a simple fact that whenever you're looking from community to community to community, it's a lot almost like if you want to compare it to, let's say, an Olive Garden from city to city or location to location. It's the brand is DR Horton. The standard is DR Horton. And in the case of Olive Garden, it's Olive Garden, right? Now, where am I going with this analogy, do you think? How many times have you been to an Olive Garden where you could go to one of them and say, hey, you know what? That was freaking awesome and deliciously amazing, right? And then you go to another one, you're like, oh my God, this is Olive Garden. And this time it sucked, right? Let's just be honest. community to community is going to be different based upon the superintendents and the personnel that work there for D.R. Horton. So when you're bringing up, any type of things that could be poor quality of houses or such, if that's your concern, they might not be a good builder for you. If that's your notion. At the same time, how can we answer these questions correctly to ensure that we're making a well-informed decision? We can Google the name of the community and their reputation, ratings and reviews, consumer affairs, and look for any complaints that are against them. The next thing that we can do, as I suggest in those videos that I've made about new construction, is to simply go in the area, especially if there are people living there already, and actually go talk to one of the neighbors. You're going to see them out and about. If not, then why not ring the doorbell and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. I'm over here looking at lot number whatever and plan model whatever, right? What was your experience working with a builder? How long have you owned this home? And just out of curiosity, have you had any problems? I just want to make sure that if I became your neighbor, that I know what to expect from this builder and from this location in specific. And if there's anything that I should be watchful for, and then just simply ask them, if you had it to do over again, what would you have done differently and why? Those are the kind of questions that you'd want to ask Elijah to make sure that you're making the right decision. Again, I have worked with D.R. Horton, and everything turned out extremely, extremely well. The families that have purchased the D.R. Horton homes are extremely happy in their homes today. And they've been there for a few years now. So I just want to toss that out there that, at least here in Las Vegas, Nevada, when I work with them, everything worked out great. And I'm sure it'll work out great for you too. But you make a well-informed decision by asking the questions of the residents, of the neighbors, work with a trusted real estate advisor, of course, even in new construction, to help guide you through the new construction process and uphold your best interest, okay? But great question. I'm glad that you brought it up. Thank you. And I'm excited for you getting ready to buy your first home or buying your single-story home over there. Angie Y, can you explain any loopholes to look for after? Uh-oh, I don't know what happened. It jumped on me again. Sorry. Since I'm going live this time off a webcam, I hope that the quality's better. Obviously, I know it's like widescreen, like super, super wide at the moment. I have to look into why. But anyways, the point being is that the comments come in differently than they were before. So whenever I'm going through them, it kind of jumps around a little bit. So really appreciate your patience with me on that. So Angie, there you are. Can you explain any loopholes to look for after an acceptance has been made on a property and it's moving towards closing? Is there anything we need to be having our eyes open to? Angie, are you the seller or the buyer? At the same time, there's really not any loopholes per se, but there are contingencies of a contract. I guess it could be just semantics here, loopholes to contingencies. Now, what you should have done prior to accepting an offer if you were a seller, or when you were making an offer if you were the buyer, is work with your trusted real estate advisor to understand which contingencies you have, how long those contingencies last, when they lapse, and also understanding what point do they get rescinded, so that you understand what your liabilities are, whether you're the seller or the buyer, or what could happen. Now, ultimately, financing contingency is very, very real for many, many, many buyers, and that financing contingency can go all the way up to right before closing, because lenders will do what's called a soft credit pool at the end of the day. So before they get ready to close, normally about 3 to 5 days in advance, they do this soft credit pool. And if the buyer did some bonehead mistake and decided to go buy a refrigerator because they decided that living inside of a refrigerator is better than living inside of a home, I know it sounds a little bit stupid, and you might go back and replay that little segment that I just said, but it is true. If you buy something and it offsets your debt to income ratios and you were close to begin with, you realistically could be living in the refrigerator as opposed to the home, because you won't get the house now. And that would be an example of a financing contingency gone wrong that can blow up at the last moment. So I don't say anything to scare you, but only to prepare you. I mean, that's what this channel is about, not to scare you, but to prepare you for the realities of a real estate transaction, what to look for, and how to assess. So, and to best answer your question, Angie, you want to get with your trusted real estate advisor and ask them about the contingencies in the contract, when those contingencies drop, and what you should know about moving forward to closing. It is a great question. It is something that I review and practice with both the buyers and sellers of the families that I help here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I certainly hope that your trusted real estate advisor will do the same thing for you. And I know that they will if you ask, but hopefully they just volunteered all that information up front just before an acceptance. It's just the best practice there. Jacob says the house turns 60 years The house turned 60 years old the day we went into escrow looking to close on our first year wedding anniversary. Crazy. You know, Jacob, that's super exciting. So the house turned 60 and you guys are getting ready to close on your 1 year wedding anniversary. Now that sounds like one of those magical moments that kind of give us goosebumps, and it's like a romantic novel could be written about or a movie made about. So, right. Jacob, rock on, dude. That's awesome. Darren Carter, Tishar, whether your spouse's name is on the house or not, you're married. The property becomes theirs as well. Just like if one of you do pay the mortgage, they'll come after the other spouse. Just like if one of you don't pay the mortgage, they'll come after your other spouse. Gotcha, Darren. So, Darren, here's an interesting tidbit. It really depends on the state. Like here in Las Vegas, Nevada, we are a common property state, right? A communal property state. So that being said, if you're married here, even if somebody's not on the mortgage or not even on any part of the process, the spouse would have a right to that property as a marital asset. But that's not always the case in every state. So it really depends on the state that you reside in. Now, of course, there are these things called attorneys, right? And these people are very, very brilliant at what they do. And I'm sure they can always find a workaround to the point. But just to be clear, it just really depends on the state law and how things go down, and also what the law practices in that state and how it governs real estate as it pertains to divorce proceedings. But you make a good point. In a lot of cases, it'll become a point of contest because it is one of the biggest assets most of us will ever have. Of course, if you're getting a divorce, everybody wants it, and everybody wants their piece of it if it has to get sold. Daniel Abernathy says, thank you for explaining. I'll check out that video. Awesome. Daniel, let me know how it works out for you. And please let us know what comes of your situation. I'm certainly sending you positive mojo and positive vibes that everything works out for you. And hopefully you'll be able to accept FHA financing with your property. And if not, then hopefully it still sells with cash or conventional pretty quick. Brian Luong says, up mommy's time. My mortgage guy is Jason S. for Rester, Minnesota Mortgage Group. Brian, thank you so much for sharing information with us. It's always great to have other personal testimonials coming in. So it sounds like you guys are in a similar location there. So that's awesome. I'm glad it helped. And he said he got me my mortgage in less than 2 weeks. That is very, very swift. I hold the record of his fastest approval. He's licensed in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So, Brian, thank you so much for that information. Mommy's Time says, I'll check them out. Awesome. Okay, screen moved again. Hold up. And now Brian is saying, Brian said that his realtor was Brandon Casper with eXp Realty. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Oh, I see what happened. Okay, so that's interesting. So YouTube is actually catching any of the hyperlinks that you're putting in here, Brian. So that's pretty cool, actually, to ensure something's not happening. But I read the URL that you were sending, so I'll open that. Let me see if I can open that up so it's available. There you go. That'll help her get the exact landing page that you were suggesting there. I saw that it is a secure site, so we're good. Okay, so M. Kastner says, after an appraiser goes out to the home, typically how long will those results be shared with the lender and buyer and the realtor? Hey, so M. Kastner, that's a great question. It really depends on the finance type that you're using. Like, let's take VA loans, for instance. A lot of times they have up to 10 days to finalize a report and get it back. Now, in practice, a lot of times it'll happen much, much quicker than that. Now, that being said, if an appraiser goes out to a property today to appraise, generally they're probably going to have that report within the next 3 to 5 business days over to the lender. The lender's going to reach out to you as a buyer and let you know what's going on. They're going to reach out and notify your buyer agent as well, let you know what's going on so you know where it's at. Now, again, it really depends on the financing type. They can come in 24 hours the very next day after an appraisal is done. It's not unheard of. It's just best to probably plan for 3 to 5 business days after an appraisal so that if you think about it like that, then you won't be disappointed if it takes that much time. And if you get it quicker, be like, oh, wow, rock on. Everybody's on top of it. So just be aware that 3 to 5 business days is pretty normal. Unless it's a VA loan, they have up to 10 days to finalize that report in a lot of cases. So please make sure that you set your expectations realistically there, and also with a mind, with a thought of knowing that a lot of appraisers will get back to you much, much quicker. Okay. Elijah 177 says, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate your feedback. I did talk to a homeowner in the identical home 1 street away. Thank you for a hint for searching for complaints about the community. God bless. Thank you, Elijah. Really appreciate that. Glad that you did take that for action. That is generally one of the best ways to know exactly how that community is behaving, is simply by talking to the people that already bought and asking them about their experiences were. Matt Layton says, don't buy a fridge after closing. Got it. Hey, Matt, thank you for checking in with us. It's great to hear from you. So some of you, I know that some of you, we have Matt, some of you are subscribed to Matt Layton and me both. So, and Javier Vidana for that matter. So Matt, thank you for joining in today. It's great to hear from you, my friend. Matt is another YouTuber, real estate agent out of Alexandria, Virginia, that makes a lot of helpful content as well. If you haven't checked out his channel, you might want to check it out. There's no harm, no foul. I won't hate on you if you subscribe to his channel, my channel, and Javier. We all have a little bit of a different approach, but we're all doing it out of the same heart and all out of the same mindset, which is helping you make sense of real estate to make a well-informed decision. So Matt, my friend, thank you so much for tuning in. And please, if you haven't, check out his channel and see if you like it and subscribe to it if so. All right. Keisha Wilson says, what is the best day of the month to close on a mortgage loan and why? That's a really good question, Keisha. I did see your comment the other day about that. I wanted to have that conversation with one of my loan officers to see if they had any suggestions about that. So I don't want to tell you exactly what the best day of the month is to close on a mortgage and why. What I can tell you is most of the time, no matter where you close in the month, you're generally not going to have your first mortgage payment for 45 to 60 days thereafter. So it really depends on the day that you close and what the situation is, whether it's going to be 45 days or 60 days. Now, I've never been asked the question directly, what is the best day to close? I would normally say a Friday is a good day to close, whether for the simple logic of being that a lot of people have off on the weekend so they can move into their new home after they close. So normally whenever I'm working with families here locally and we're talking about a closing day, it normally is a Friday in a lot of cases, if at all possible, so that we can give them the keys that night and they can start moving in over the weekend. Now, I have a feeling, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, Mel, is that you're asking me this question as it pertains to probably prorations for actual pennies on the dollar and dollars for dollars, right? Essentially, is there a benefit to closing on a specific day of the month as opposed to another to make sure that you get maybe 60 days before your first mortgage payment? And how would that work on the per diem basis of all the different costs? Yes, ma'am. Okay. So you say yes, sir, and that's exactly what it is. Okay. So in that case, Keisha, what I would suggest is getting with your local loan officer that you're working with and reviewing that with them. And if you haven't gone in the contract yet, ask them what their suggestion is, and then ask them the same question you asked me. But because I'm not a loan officer, I'm just a real estate agent, then they'll be able to give you the best advice specific to your current location so that you'll know what to do and what to talk to your trusted real estate advisor about if you want to close on a specific date. Now, keep in mind that everything may be negotiable, but if you're trying to toss off a closing date 30 days in the future, and as opposed to maybe a 30 to 35 day escrow, if that's normal where you are, like it is here in Las Vegas, Nevada, that could make the seller not so happy. And they might not want to accept your offer or be wondering what the problem is, why you're not willing to close earlier. Again, it's so many different variables in a negotiation, so many different thought processes go into it. It's about being clear on why you want to do it. Is it really worth it at the end of the day? And is there any big benefit to you or not at the end of the day? So chat that over with a local loan officer, Keisha. I think that's a really, really good question. If you'd be so kind as to come back on the live stream maybe next week after you have that conversation, let us know what you find out and any suggestions and what your key takeaways were from that conversation so we can help anyone else that has that same question on their mind too. So Keisha, thank you for bringing that up. And Darren Carter says, lots of laughs. I didn't even buy a piece of bubble gum with my credit card when we were going through the process. Lots of laughs. Didn't want to mess up my debt to income ratio. Darren, that was really smart. And I definitely remember some of your direct messages to me where you shared that with me. That's awesome. Hey, it really is that serious in a lot of cases. There have been escrows that have exploded for less, right? So we want to make sure that we don't have a contract explode on somebody whenever a seller's all excited, they're in the process of moving out, going on to their next destination. A buyer's all excited to move into the home to get the keys to their new home. Last thing that anyone wants in that situation, seller or buyer, is to fall apart. So make sure that you keep it on the up and up. You work so hard to get there, and in a little bit of time, you could have the keys to your new home. But I mean, a big mistake like that can really cost you. So appreciate you sharing. That is pretty funny, though, that you wouldn't even buy a pack of bubble gum with a credit card. Smart move all the same. You're in your new home, aren't you, my friend? Angie Y says, do you advise getting an attorney to look over your contract before you sign anything with your buyer or seller? So that really depends on the state, Angie. There are definitely real estate attorney states where real estate attorneys are quite normal to a normal part of the process. For instance, in Las Vegas, Nevada, they are not a normal part of the process. That being said, in our contracts and right in the bold print of our contracts here in Las Vegas, Nevada, it says if you wish to contact a real estate attorney to review these contracts with you, you reserve the right to do so at your own expense. So having said that, if that's something that makes you comfortable and that's something that you want to do, then go ahead and do it. It's completely a personal decision. And I think that if your trusted real estate advisor and your loan officer and such are being completely transparent, open, and honest with you, you're probably going to know pretty quick. Just based upon the conversation with them. And if they're explaining all the disclosures ahead of time to you, then it's up to you whether you would be more comfortable hearing that from an attorney or if you'd be more comfortable having your trusted real estate advisor review the disclosures with you. As a trusted real estate advisor here in Las Vegas, Nevada, of course, my number one preference is to always meet with families in this office here and have them sit essentially right here. Since this is so wide, you can see it. You don't see the chairs over there, but it's a run on my office here, and I have a pair of chairs over there that I normally would ask people to sit down on. We would review what they're looking for in their new home. I'm normally taking notes. I always ask their permission if I could take notes during the conversation. I use obviously a CRM, which is a client relationship manager, to keep tab on everything and make sure that I'm focusing on what's most important to them. That being said, a lot of times in the initial meeting or no longer than the second meeting, I would always love the opportunity to give them or at least review their buyer disclosures with them. In the first meeting, I will normally give an outline of what all of them are, and I'll have them available for them to review and sign right there. If they tell me, hey, Andrew, really appreciate that, but before we sign anything, I'd like to review this, I'd say, okay, great. Do you have any questions in specific that I can answer for you? And they said, no, we just want some time to digest or talk it over with maybe they have an attorney family member or something. I said, rock on. Go ahead, take them. If you have any questions about them, let me know. Now that you took them, what I can do is send them to you digitally if that makes it easier for you to sign so that everybody has a copy of it right away after it's signed. So I love digital signing software because everyone gets a copy as soon as it's signed. I think it's awesome. I think everybody should have a copy of any documents that they sign all the time anyways. That being said, I think it really just depends on your comfort level, Angie, and you have to make the decision that's going to keep you comfortable and confident every step of the way moving forward. So please, if it's something that makes you feel better to have a real estate attorney, then please contact one to review it with you. If you're happy with your trusted real estate agent's disclosures and explanation, it's up to you to make the decision that's best for you. So I thank you so much. Darren says, Angie, why? Yes, you do need an attorney. The seller's attorney will not talk directly to the buyer and vice versa. So, Darren, it goes back to in these 50 United States that we have, in some states, they are attorney states where real estate attorneys are a quite natural part of the process. And in a lot of states, in fact, more states than are not, don't require the attorney. So it's one of those things to be real about. So depending on where Angie lives, she may not need an attorney, and that might be why she's asking the question. So it's one of those situations that real estate does vary from state to state. Matt, he and I have talked about doing some differences and compare and contrast along with Javier for that matter about trying to figure out how we could do maybe a live stream or shoot some kind of video about the differences of the real estate process from area to area and what we observe in the market, and also sharing more information, kind of like if you have it would be really cool. I mean, I think it'd be awesome if we had the capability to do it. And it's like, you watch those news programs or something, like maybe you're watching Kumo. I don't know if you like Kumo. I like Kumo. But anyways, Kumo, you watch him. He's got his people up. And, you essentially have someone moderating, asking questions, being Kumo. And then these people are talking, weighing in on their opinions or weighing in on their experience on the question. So that's kind of something that Matt and Javier and myself have looked at doing. It's just a matter of coming up with, one, the time to do it. And two, given that we're all Javier's in Arizona, Matt's in Virginia, and I'm here in Vegas, given the logistics of everything is making sure that we know how to do this and do it correctly so it looks good and it's valuable to you. So anyways, I think that's really good. I think that's a really good conversation and back and forth there, Darren. So thank you. All right, M. Caster says, how are the appraisals coming in the Las Vegas market? Are you seeing more appraisals come back lower than what the sell prices are? So, M. Caster, that's a good question. So it really depends on where the house was listed to begin with. Normally what you want to do, and there'll be a video coming out in 2 weeks. It's already been filmed, obviously, for me to tell you this. But in 2 weeks, I have a video coming out for home buying tips. What is a CMA and why you should care? And the reason I wanted to make that video is CMAs aren't just for sellers. CMAs are for buyers too. And the reason this pertains to your question is anytime that I'm working with a family here locally in Las Vegas, what we're doing before we write an offer is I'm always doing what's called a comparative market analysis, or CMA in short, right? And what I'm doing whenever the reason I'm doing that is to evaluate where that property is listed and look at it through an objective lens. Did the listing agent and the seller price that property correctly? Is it at fair market value? Is it above fair market value? Is it below? Number one, that'll give you an indication and insight into negotiation moving forward before you write that offer. If you're at fair market value, then you'd want to look at the days on market. Also explore, as a trusted real estate advisor, call the listing agent up and see what's going on with that situation to see if they've received any offers, what the traction and actions going on in that property. If they have none, then you know that if it's at fair market value, your buyer needs to come in and be willing to go hard in the negotiations, meaning that they need to be willing to probably pay the list price in that case and also be willing to pay their own buyer closing costs depending on the market conditions at the time. I always make this comment about what makes the market tick, where TIC is an acronym, TIC, trends, indicators, and conditions. Understanding that as it pertains to real estate negotiations is paramount and critically important to a successful negotiation. That being said, what happens if the seller is under market value? Well, if the seller is under market value, what do you think the seller's mindset is? The seller and the listing agent are probably angling for a multiple bid situation to drive the price higher than the fair market, get probably a buyer to agree to waive out an appraisal contingency or agree to pay a certain amount of money out of pocket in the case the property doesn't appraise for that price. So it gives you the insight into negotiations before you even get into the negotiation by knowing where they're listed. Now, if they're bat crap crazy and they're just too darn high, let's say that house is listed for $400,000 and the CMA reflects that it should have been at $375, all things considered. My other acronym here, because you know I am retired Marine, you know that, right? I will make up acronyms that help me remember things and help explain things to make it easier for all of us to understand. This next acronym I love because it's FAB. It's literally FAB, F-A-B. What are the features, amenities, and benefits of that specific property when assessing that CMA, right? So we got to check out the FAB of the property and see how FAB it really is, right? So when we're looking at the features, amenities, and benefits, if it's on par with all the rest of those homes that we're selling at $375,000, but they're listed at $400,000, what gives? So if I'm representing that family and they say, Andrew, you know, what should we do? What should we offer? And I'm saying, hey, realistically, normally within a very reasonable margin of error between 0.5% to 1% margin of error most of the time whenever I comp a property out compared to what the actual appraisal will be, normally within 0.5%, which is extremely on the nose whenever it comes down to these numbers. If that shows $375,000, then what we would do, as I say, you really want to offer $375,000. And they say, hey, Andrew, I didn't really want a low ball or anything. I say, hey, it's not a low ball if you're offering somebody fair market value. So when people ask me, Andrew, should I offer, you know, a certain percentage underneath as a rule of thumb for a property? My answer is always, it really depends on what that CMA says. Because a true lowball offer is when you start getting below fair market value, and depending on the reasons why. I mean, what's the condition of the property? What's going on with that property? You got to dive deep into it. You can't just say as a rule of thumb, oh, I'm just going to offer, you know, X, Y, and Z percent, whatever that percent is to you, because you woke up one morning deciding, hey, I want to offer less, right? You got to be realistic if you want a successful negotiation. If you're not realistic, it's like whenever I refer to the Heaven's Gate Kool-Aid, right? We all know what the Heaven's Gate analogy is here, right? The Kool-Aid, the people died, they drank their own Kool-Aid, they killed themselves. Hello. So whenever I'm talking about in the videos, Kool-Aid, normally that's what I'm referring to. People are, it's our human nature to want to drink our own Kool-Aid, but the problem with our own Kool-Aid a lot of times is it's poisoned. And in drinking our own Kool-Aid, it causes us a problem because we begin to believe what is not true. And when we begin to believe what is not true, then that's where the problem exists, because you're not going to have a successful negotiation, and the market's going to probably spank you several times until you learn. And then people start getting jaded and think, well, the market's against me, the world's against me. Oh my God, this is so hard. It doesn't have to be if you take a step back, hence the hashtag JTAB, right? The hashtag JTAB movement we're starting together here, right? Hashtag JTAB, just take a breath, reassess. If we just take the step back, take a breath, reassess, be real, look at the facts, and be logical about it, and check the emotions at the door, check our preconceived notions at the door, get that CMA down pat, and know what's going on. So when you're talking about, am I seeing appraisals come back lower than what the sales prices are here in Vegas, it really depends on the offer point. You know, whenever we submit an offer for a family here in Vegas, we're going to submit that CMA. If that CMA, especially if that price is less than what the seller's asked for, we want the seller to know and the listing agent to know, by presenting that CMA, we are not lowballing your price. A buyer cannot get more home loan than the appraised value of a home. We're asking you to do the right thing by sharing with you the facts. And always open-minded to a different point of view. Of course, going back to today's book, The Outward Mindset, you know, is there something we're missing? Is there a reason why your FAB is different than these comps, right? Your features, amenities, and benefits, the FAB. Is there something different? Is there something we might be missing? And have that conversation with the understanding that, hey, even if a buyer chooses to offer a little bit more than the estimated fair market value, okay, so long as you as a seller understand that if it doesn't appraise for some reason, you need to drop that price. So long story short of it, what I'm seeing more often than not in Kastner is a lot of price reductions in the market. So I think what happened is coming off of the seller's market, and going back to January 2019's video about market predictions for this year, the market's in a stabilization point in most of the country, right? I mean, obviously there's some markets that are still a seller's market, and there's some markets, given the price point, if you start stratifying a market and looking at it holistically that way and breaking down the price point in each market segment, that's the way that you know what the real market's doing. And each local spot is also breaking down the zip code, the community, the price point. There's so many variables that go into it, as opposed to getting into like an economics lesson of how to assess property, right? Let me just share with you, on average, it's really stabilizing. So what's happening is right now the mindset of a lot of sellers have to catch up to that thought process. Now, a stabilizing market, does that mean that it's a buyer's market? No, not necessarily. Does it mean it's a seller's market? No, not necessarily. Hence the word stable, which some people might just simply call a balanced market, when there's about an equal number of homes available as there are buyers in the market. A stabilizing market will normally see home appreciation, but at a slower pace, a slower rate of growth. So what I'm noticing in the Las Vegas market is a lot of that mindset starting to seep in on the sellers, realizing, hey, if I want to sell my home, I, number one, need to declutter, depersonalize it. I can't have a house that smells like hot, wet garbage. I can't have lousy photography out there if I truly want to sell my home. Oh, by the way, this thing called a price is a little bit important to get it right, because by getting the price right out of the gate, they stand the chance of selling, and normally selling faster and for better terms